When a 60-second clip defines someone's theology for the course of a week or even a month or their life, it can be so difficult as Christian leaders today to navigate how to meet them in that moment. Listen, you know, and I know that the history-changing truth of the gospel isn't communicated or conveyed in clips. It's actually transferred through Christ-like character lived out in our lives that changes communities, lives, and nations. That kind of gospel-transforming power comes through something more. So today we want to talk through and look at what does it mean to lead in a context where so many people are learning about their faith through these short-term clips and these interactions, or maybe even the AI summaries on their Google searches, rather than walking in relationship with people. So today we want to look at a couple of strategies that will help us to navigate this interesting new moment that we're living and leading through today. So I'm really excited to be joined again by Shannon Jackson. Shannon is such a dear friend. Shannon, I know you have just some questions and thoughts that you'd like to kind of bat around with me to see how to navigate the complexities of the current leadership context.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Daniel. I'm excited to have this conversation with you. One of the questions I have is for someone who is a pastor, they want to be in the same space as people that are looking for Jesus.
Yeah.
They have a message. They are concerned about discipleship. They know that their congregation is in these spaces, and so they want to also be in these spaces. So how do they, with integrity, enter into these spaces, but also offer something more authentic than just a click and a 20-minute or 20-second clip about Jesus?
Yeah, I think that's such a great question. I believe the best leaders, the most effective Christian leaders, are culturally relevant, right? So they're going to
Yep.
live and teach the gospel with cultural sensitivity and power in a way that really engages people. And I think it's important, first and foremost, to acknowledge this is where people are meeting,
Yeah.
right? Paul went to the Areopagus, and the Areopagus of our day is this space, right? It's the Instagram space, the TikTok space, the YouTube short space, the Reels space. It's in those places. That's the natural meeting point where people are gathering to think and discuss ideas together.
Yeah.
And so for the Christian leader today, it's first acknowledging that's where they're gathering.
Mhm.
So we should meet them in that place, becoming all
Right.
things to all people that some may know him.
Right.
So instead of kind of raging against that, as we might, we
Mhm.
first want to acknowledge, hey, that's where they're going. It's okay for us to be in that space.
Yeah.
I think, praise God, there are many believers who have seen the need for sound teaching and theology in those digital spaces, and praise God, they are engaging in them. I think of a couple of great groups like Kingdom Code UK, an incredible movement of men and women that are using digital tools to advance the kingdom, or Faith Tech Global, another incredible ministry helping believers to think through with some consistency and some integrity how to apply the scriptures through the use of these digital tools and technologies. So some great groups to look at there. But if your question is, hey, how do I help carry that from just an observation into something of greater significance? I think for the leader today, it's catching those clips and speaking into them. Find the
Mhm.
ones that are going viral in your feed and in the feeds of others, and begin to speak to some of those,
Mhm.
either intentionally throughout the week,
Mhm.
or even on a Sunday, if you're a teacher or a preacher, or maybe you're a Christian business owner and you want to speak to some of those things that you see in the during your staff Bible study or prayer
Right.
group, or
Yeah.
whatever your context is for
Yeah.
kind of discipling people. But I think as a Christian leader, we want to see those and then take the opportunity to speak into them. It's likely that your people are already seeing those. So when you engage in that video that teaches about the Trinity for the first
Mhm.
time,
Mhm.
or talks about a section of scripture that maybe is a little hard to wrestle through, begin to respond to those. I also
Mhm.
think it's a great opportunity for sound Christian thinkers to respond with reaction videos. If you see somebody who's saying something, you go, hey, they're not wrong, but this would carry it a step further. Reacting to those things and kind of giving some of your feedback or content would be a way to help teach and disciple. But I think
Mhm.
above all of these things, we have to be careful to engage with people, not just producing more content for their
Mhm.
feeds, as important and valuable as that can be,
Yeah.
but I think the more we can move from content to a conversation,
Mhm.
we begin to move closer and closer to the relational elements of discipleship that are biblical. I think the history of the church is one that has always used technology to advance the gospel, to
Right.
advance the kingdom,
Yeah.
right? Paul used pen and paper. That was a technology. We don't even think about it as technology today, but it was.
Correct.
The printing press, the advent of radio, each of these really leveraged technology to advance the gospel.
Sure.
Bringing hope to people who are hopeless, bringing the good news of Christ to people who didn't have it. This is just a new moment in history for that same activity in action.
Mm-hmm.
We want to make sure that we're continually pulling people from just hearing a thing
Mm-hmm.
and it not really changing their lives
Right.
to moving them closer and closer into relationship.
Yeah.
And I think the best way to do that is comments and calls to actions,
Mm-hmm.
right? We want to engage with those who are authentically engaging in the comments,
Right.
but then also give them call to actions, give them a practical next step where they know they can land for the next element in the
Yeah.
relationship. If they're not
Yeah.
ready for that, they're just going to kind of swipe on past and they're going to keep going. But there's going to be some who go, hey, I do want to hear more about this. I do
Mm-hmm.
want to understand this more. And that's when you can link them back to maybe depending on your spiritual background or kind of Christian denominational affiliation, you bring them back to a catechism and you walk them through a catechism. You bring them
Yeah.
back to an old confession, right? The
Mm-hmm.
London Confession of 18 whatever, or the Westminster Confession, or you bring them back to some of these kind of old ancient documents. And I think in that process, you're really going to find they begin to latch on to, wait a minute, this is old, this is true, in a world that's full of new age, new idea. There's something rich and I think longing in the ancient truths
Yeah.
that Scripture provides, and some of the thoughts of our brothers and sisters
Sure.
of bygone eras.
Yeah.
They still have value to add to our lives because they did that hard work of thinking through and planning.
Right.
And so I would say, hey, Christian leader today, you're trying to navigate that. Man, put out some reaction videos, speak to those things to the people that are gathering with you, that you are in a relationship with,
Mm-hmm.
and then begin taking the digital space that you are engaged in and point people to increasing levels of community and connection with you,
Mm-hmm.
and begin giving people that kind of clear funnel where they can take next steps in relationship with you.
Yeah. I love what you said about bringing people together, giving them a place to have a conversation, really following up with them, being active in the comments. We can look at that as just, something that could be insignificant, but anybody engaged online right now sees that those comment sections, sometimes somebody will share a post and just say, read the comments, because the comment section is where all the action's at. So I love that you're saying, that's actually an effective way to add some authenticity to a post. That's great. For someone who is possibly new, engaging, they're making some posts that maybe they're not seeing a lot of traction, but they are interested in helping people take those next steps and creating that conversation space. What advice would you give them on how to be authentic? Because we do know that regardless of how many people are engaging in social media, and we talk often about how social media is people's perfect, what they want you to see.
Mm-hmm.
But yet we're all craving authenticity. And so how can they, in this world where people are pushing this perfect perception, how can they balance that and be more authentic in that space?
Share your failures. That's it.
That's good.
If you want people to know that you're being honest and fully there,
Mm-hmm.
share the hard moments.
Yeah.
It's not that we magnify or celebrate those things.
Yeah.
And there's a twistedness to that, right? Sometimes people share like the photo of the hospital bed because that's going to get the most clicks, the most
Sure.
likes, the most whatevers.
Sure.
Because it does, right? It kind of is sensationalized.
Mm-hmm.
But I think particularly for Christian leaders today, there could be a real pressure to always be on, to always be performant, to not have setbacks, failures, faults,
Yep.
shortcomings.
Yeah.
And to only celebrate the wins. I do think that the culture is shifting from that a bit, but I think the best thing to do is to have those live moments where you just say, "Hey, this is where I am today."
Yeah.
And there's probably a couple of good practices for that. One would just be, "Hey, I have a weekly check-in that no matter really what's going on, I just check in that digital space,
Sure.
and I just say, hey, this is where I am. This is what's really going on." And you kind of touch base with that, almost like a maybe like old school internet where it was like a blog,
Mm-hmm.
right, or a
Yeah.
vlog that you just kind of have out there. It's like a digital diary.
Mm-hmm.
I think returning to some things like that might be just a a new old way to go about that process. Because in the midst of those failures, people see that, right? Authenticity really is usually a phrase that means, how do I know that I can trust what you're saying?
Sure.
Right? How do I really know that you're giving it all to me?
Mm-hmm.
And I think sharing those struggles are an easy way, because
Yeah.
for what reason would you share that?
Right.
Now you could share that manipulatively, but Christian audience here, I'd like to think we all know that we ought not be doing that. And so that's what I would do. I would just go about that process of sharing those kinds of moments.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because you're right. So often people, either they're afraid to share their authentic self because you never know. You're putting yourself out there on
Yeah.
social media. You're, welcoming whoever can say whatever they want to say about whatever situation, and maybe even not even see that you're being authentic. They may even judge your authenticity as being fake in such a hyper-focused, judgmental world that we seem to be in right now. There's another space. It's not really social media, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on, churches post-COVID world that we're in now. Everybody went online; they had to, and so now you find where churches are really struggling with presenting the service online because they want to engage with people who that's going to be their first impression of the church. But then people have started to stay at home, and that it becomes a version of church for them. So how do they balance the being present, but then people not taking that next step of actual face-to-face community because there's something a little easier being offered?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably been a bit of problem solution mismatch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the fact that I could put my sermon online is actually it's an acknowledgement that what I'm putting online is a learning opportunity. It's a teaching opportunity, and that's been made available to more people and more times and more spaces, and that's good. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not a bad thing
Yeah.
that people have more ways to connect with the scriptures and more ways to practically engage with some of the problems that they're facing.
Mm-hmm.
That's all a huge win. What you're saying is, hey, they're staying home more. They're not actually engaging, and I would say that's a really points to a larger symptom that the way in which we've so often structured our churches today, it is the delivery of a piece of content rather than the creation of a sense of community and conversation and fellowship.
Yeah.
And so I think if we're finding that's the reality, where people are attending our church in person once a month, but they're attending online 2 other times a month, they have stepped into a space where the belief is, this is where I learn about God. Yes, and
Yeah.
right there's more to
That's
it
right.
than that.
That's right.
It's where I am a part of a community,
Mm-hmm.
and the community itself needs me, and I need it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the piece that I think is sometimes missing. Right, that used to be the moment for a lot of human history where knowledge was not available to so
Right.
many, right? Like maybe they couldn't read, maybe they couldn't write. And then we have the massive literacy explosion of the late 1800s,
Yeah.
actually really driven in large part by the church,
Yeah.
which is incredible when you
Yeah.
think through and learn about some of that history.
Mm-hmm.
But you go from that literacy explosion to a space where that was where you could gather with your community every other day. You're working, right? You're at the factory or you're in the field. You're doing things. To the context now where I can actually learn, and I probably have access to far better teachers than in all of human history, even.
Right.
Wow, just what incredible teachers and preachers and expositors there are today in the world. Incredible. But that's not the only reason I go to church.
Right.
Right?
Right.
I go because there's community. I go because there's a sense of fellowship. There's a sense of accountability. There's a sense of camaraderie. There's a sense of at the end of the day, if tragedy strikes my home, I'm not going to pull up a video.
Right.
I'm going to want somebody to pull up in my driveway.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think for the pastor today that's trying to navigate some of those AI elements, saying, hey, I've got my people constantly turning to those places. I would say this is the key moment to be as present as possible, and to develop in the leaders that you're working with,
Right.
a sincere renewal of the practice of presence,
Mm.
where it's, hey, we're going to practice being present with one another, because in that presence, we'll earn the opportunity to really minister to one another,
Yeah.
and again, move beyond. Because I've got a lot of people, and this isn't a new problem. Okay, let's remember.
Right.
I have been reading and studying what people have said about God, even though they have long been dead. Right? People wrote
Yeah.
books for a super long time,
Sure.
and those books continue to minister and continue to teach and continue to disciple. So it's not an unheard of thing.
Correct.
The problem is when they're dead, you can't really talk to them anymore. You
Right.
can't actually be in a relationship
Yeah.
with them. And so in the same way, in these digital spaces, yeah, they're still alive, but they're so detached from where you are in space and time, it can be
Mhm.
really hard to have any kind of real relationship with them.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's where we got to step in and
Yeah.
love our people well in the process.
Yeah. I love that, Daniel, and I want to thank you for that wisdom. And we're in a digital space. This is
Yeah,
going to be in
yeah.
a digital space. And we've really been talking to the people who are trying to get in the digital space.
Mm-hmm.
And we're almost out of time. So I thought maybe to close, there's another person who might be watching this, the person who's coming for the content,
Mhm.
who wants to grow in their faith.
Yeah.
And so what would you say to somebody who finds himself going to digital spaces more often than a person? What would you say to them to encourage them on how to increase their Christ-like character outside of a digital space? We welcome them here in the digital space.
Oh,
We
yeah.
love that. But what would you say to somebody who's checked in today that's, they're coming to the digital space more often than not for their discipleship?
Yeah. Listen, brother, sister, I just want to say, welcome. I'm so happy that you're here. I pray to God that this serves you and encourages you and it helps you think, or maybe even gives you some practices that can help you in your faith. Here's the reality. I'm not walking with you. I'm not literally sitting at the table next to you. I can't see your life and observe you, to be able to give you wise counsel in the midst of your circumstances in life. And I think the beauty of God is that he himself is communal. He is triune. We are made in his image. And so we too were created to be in community with one another. And that community is not a disconnected, but it's one that intimately knows one another, right? If my wife and I are having a fight or a struggle, you would see that and you'd be able to say something to me about it. In the same way, you need to be in community with other people. I'm a huge believer that a local church, a local congregation is fundamental and essential for the healthy, successful Christian life that God intends. That's why churches exist even in the most persecuted places on the planet, because believers need to gather together. It's something different when you sit across the table from somebody. It doesn't mean that what we're doing now isn't important, it isn't valuable. It just means there is something more to the process. So I want to encourage you, check out your local church, get plugged in, get connected, be in a small group or a Sunday school class, be in relationship with other believers who can help navigate the hard moments when they come. And if you're looking, I want to encourage you, download the Bible app. There, you can actually put in your location and find a local church near you right now. A great way to connect with people that are thinking about the digital space because they're there on the YouVersion app, but they're also people that are willing to engage and accept people that walk in the door for the first time. So they've already rolled out the red carpet for you. That's a great place for you to get plugged in. I'd also say, hey, be active in our comment section today. We want to engage with you. We want to connect with you. So if this is helpful in any way, man, be active in the comments. We want to talk. We want to celebrate with you where you're celebrating and encourage you where you feel things are heavy as a leader. Listen, we know it's hard to lead. And if God is using his people to change the course of history, we know that that's going to have a lot of difficulties along the way. So we want to encourage you. I think the best way to advance the gospel is a local leader, just like you. So live out these 8 core values and you will discover a faithful life, well lived, finishing well in a way that glorifies God and advances his kingdom for his glory, for his namesake, and for the good of his people all around the world. It's a joy to be here with you. You can find more resources at iliteam.org along the way.